Alice in Chains, Rainier Fog. Alright, so even though there's another album that did come out, it's been literally a week since it's come out. And yeah, I was supposed to do this Monday, but I haven't been catching up like I used to with this, and a lot of other things I haven't been able to catch up with. But heck, I wanted to actually do a certain other album today, but that almost kind of screwed up what I needed to think on with this album, actually. And we'll talk about that album probably Monday instead. It's probably better off because I got something I gotta do after I upload this. And I'm hoping I beat out the weather. Fingers crossed. Aside from that, let's see here. Well, what I had said about this album during my Bandcamp reviews earlier Monday, I still feel the same about it. I still think this is... Oh, and also, 2 Alice in Chains. At first I thought I couldn't find the lyric sheet, but turns out you found a way to hide it under this part of the CD case, so thanks for that, first of all. Thanks for being clever about it, even though it almost kind of made me think you forgot to put a lyric sheet in it. I mean, since you don't show credits in the back, you may as well have it, in your lyric sheet. But anyway, had me worried for a second there, really did. But anyway, this 10-track album affair, and it's the third, ironically the third within this lineup, with consisting of Jerry Cantrell, Sean Kinney, the only 2 founding members I think that are actually left in the band. Mike Inez, who's been in the band since Three-Legged Dog, The Tripod, whatever anyone calls it, self-titled at this point. And Black Is Way to Blue was technically, for the time being, the best involving Inez in the band, and then now it seems I think that's changed. Because as far as I am concerned, in comparison to everyone else is saying, though I kind of understand and see the complaints, and that's probably why it's not getting Master Class, I'm already going to tell you that right now. But what I originally was expecting was possibly just a thumbs up, but I'm more surprised that that's not the case. However, there is still one song on here that just is on the bland side, and could have at a point almost pushed it to this album to possibly be kind of potentially considered worse, but actually this is a step back in the right direction. And all they really needed to do, for the most part, aside from maybe finding a different producer or something, which they didn't do, they figured, oh, let's just go back to Seattle. Let's go back to our roots. And they sound like they have. While simultaneously not having entirely ignored everything they did the past couple. In fact, originally I hated Devil Put Dinosaurs Here, and found it started to get boring with it. And it's just, not that I didn't listen to it a couple times, it's just nothing stuck as much, aside from maybe the singles at the time. Though I have since changed and gave it another go while prepping for this album, and though the moment you hear Hollow, especially straight up putting this album in after you just finished Black Is Way to Blue, you start to feel something's, like, though the riffs are great, but you can tell something's off. And You're Pretty Done was kind of, to the point where it does kind of, it almost kind of screwed over the stone a little bit. And Voices, but it wasn't, and Voices was a better track, but then the title track comes in and is honestly the most boring song on that album. But it wasn't until like tracks like Low Ceiling was nice. I mean, Phantom Limb is still one of the better riffs, but of course, I'm saying this now because I've never had a chance to talk about it, but overall, the album went from being super bland to just okay. and just kind of stuck in its own mediocrity. And it's and more so because it couldn't figure out where exactly the direction they wanted to go, other than maybe trying to still stick with what they were doing, but the roots. But they kind of found this point where it just feels like you could cut and paste some of those tracks and put that on Black is the Way of Blue. And I'm hearing the same thing has been said of Fog Rainer, but I don't think I feel like this album feels more closer to classic Alice in Chains. And I don't feel like, if anything, if there is at least one song I would consider, it would, or any song I would consider, it's only Deaf Ears Blind Eyes to me. I know I've heard some people who really like that track, but to me it does not come off that great. And it just and that's the almost close to Devil Put Dinosaurs Here bland. And it could have ruined the rest of this record, or put it in that okay thing and made it possibly worse, but it didn't. Because the follow-up track may be, though, weaker than Fly, which, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, let's start from the beginning. The One You Know is I didn't like it at first, but I mean, the chorus still sticks with you pretty well, or at least the delivery in the chorus. And the riffs aren't bad, but hearing it, knowing it kind of seems like the same stuff at first, though the lead, it seems in terms of lead guitar work, for the most part, is where it seems it's come back, seems to actually connect better in the ways that for me, and nothing has really hit full in its entirety since Jars of Flies for Alice in Chains at this point, though the closest they had come was Black is the Way to Blue. And this album seems to be what they've been doing the past couple albums, though more Black is the Way to Blue in terms of how it is quality, and definitely bringing, and with them having worked into Seattle, a lot of the ideas that we're trying to attempt to bring in old school Alice in Chains that just didn't work on there, worked far better here, especially lead work, somewhat drumming on Luttrell's side of things, and it seems to have come together far better and more cohesively than before. Even though some people feel like I don't even think elevator music. If that's just elevator music, then no one would want to really leave the elevator. I mean, come on. It's kind of whoever made that statement, I'm not even going to say who, that was kind of dumb. Because that's not what's happening here. Deaf Ears Blind Eyes, I could kind of see that, but that's kind of it. I mean, Drone kind of does what it does, drone on a little bit. Also, kind of the more drone metal-ish kind of thing for the band. Given it's still sort of more sludgy in the ways of certain songs like what happened before with Black is the Way to Blue. But for me, I mean, the first three tracks, it's a nice 1-2-3 punch of that sort of old school of current Alice in Chains with that nice little punch of nice certain little niche of old school that actually blends well together, from going from The One You Know to Rainier Fog, which is of course the title track, a sort of a tribute towards Seattle itself. Red Giant's definitely one of the heavier ones, and it does seem like it deals with the whole concept of showmanship, or just the idea of entertaining in sort of the same sense as how wrestling kind of is, where it, or at least kind of seemed it was at a certain time, and then eventually kind of before they decided to pull the curtain. And even when they did pull the curtains, there's still people who loved them for it anyway, and for it when they finally did say stuff like that. It's kind of something of that nature, in that something of that nature. I think if you're a wrestling fan, I think the lyrics to this one, to Red Giant, will definitely understand. I mean, though it, or at least that of someone who's kind of involved in showmanship, that's sort of compulsively lying or acting his ass off and laughing his ass off about it, or something like that. Fly's I'm not sure. Not all the songs I'm going to get into bother to get in the lyrics. Drone's fine. Kind of, I guess, deals with the drone, or something weird, because there's something about a black hole in there. But it's fine for what it is. I mean, it's more the way every song here is delivered, not so much lyrics, and that's kind of what Alice in Chains has been, really. Maybe somewhat kind of references as sort of like a conclusion to Check My Brain, I guess, because it references LA now in a way, or his time in LA since that point that he had written it, so, and how basically he's getting homesick and missing home, something of that nature, I think. So Far Under, which I believe is the one and only song on here that is apparently only where the lyrics and music are all that of current, sort of, I wouldn't say frontman, since Control's kind of really running the ship, but but this is the only one where lyrics and music is credited straight to Duvall, and that's honestly the song that really got me, and even sonically got me to thinking that they're finally getting to that point of the roots, truly the roots of Alice in Chains, in the ways I've missed and loved about them through the likes of Facelift, Dirt, and even go as far as the Jars of Flies EP, despite some people saying it's not one of their best, even though I think that should be more reserved for the last album. And 3, really? To each his own. And that track, of course, is so far under. Even though. And I mostly like it because when they hit that note, it's the guitars, the riffing, blending with the vocals in like a harmony, the dual vocal guitar harmony, riffing harmony is fucking awesome. So on that, and is the hook of that song in that chorus, and keeps and is really hits, and like the way they duel together throughout the chorus is really the hook of the entire track. Not that the riffs themselves already in the beginning throughout the verses aren't good enough hooks as it is, and it's possibly almost, I want to say it's better than Last of My Kind, but that's still up for debate. But definitely one of the highlights as far as I'm concerned on this record, even though I get why people would prefer Red Giant or something. Or somehow there was a comparison to Drone, and Drone is nice. It definitely tries to do different things and here and there, but Never Fade, I was kind of worried at first, but the song has definitely grown on me even more now that where it's at a track list. In fact, So Far Under, when I first tried to look at the track listing after hearing the second track, once I found out it was on the later track listing, I was happier to know that at least not all the really good songs are in the front like the last record. So which means they're actually put some thought into it, and they did. And Never Fade, and All I Am, I was going to put it in my worst, but it's grown on me, and even reading into the lyrics just not too long ago, yeah, it's definitely one of their better written songs, and I feel like the only thing about this album that makes people, when it comes to this era, in comparison to the way things ended off with the Staley era of the band, the difference is I feel like maybe All I Am is probably a better song than Over Now, though, because it's kind of about the same length. It's kind of a more ballady kind of thing, but it works better, I guess. And I feel like it does kind of, a lot of the stuff deals with a lot of the whole, including Never Fade and stuff, deal with a lot of certain things that have happened. I think the one was kind of a Prince, sort of something, having Prince or David Bowie in mind. Or at least the Never Fade and All I Am or something. Those tracks seem to have kind of been more towards Chris Cornell and his passing and stuff, and how Cornell and given some of the Seattle bands, members of those bands have sort of come together and have worked together before. Of course, that's kind of was already noted through like the Sap EP, and I think for a little bit. So, and it's definitely one of the better written songs. I'm not sure I'll go into it as much lyrically, but it's definitely kind of it's a little dark on its own, but it's a nice overall. Aside from only technically one track, this album is the best thing I think this era of Alice in Chains has done, and is the closest thing we've ever gotten to the Staley era Alice in Chains, while while still balancing out itself with what they've done prior that has worked for the most part. And yeah, I'd say if this is the last album we get of the decade, or the last album we ever get from Alice in Chains, I'm kind of glad we did, because this was a step up from the last record, and I'm kind of looking forward more to what Alice might do, though at this point I'm hoping that they leave off from here and try to do something a little bit more without fully alienating what they've done here. And I think they might make another masterpiece, possibly, because this is somewhere possibly in the middle for an Alice in Chains record. I don't know if I would, make it above Black Is Way to Blue, or tie it with, for a moment I would say I would almost tie it with the Jars of Flies EP, though some people would say that's pretty high up there compared to Dirt or Facelift, but it's kind of here nor there. All I know is that it's better than most of Alice in Chains' considerably worst albums, especially the last one. I can't say that and stress that enough as it is, and I probably still will. Overall, guys, this album rocks. Top 10, maybe. Just right now, the year hasn't really, for me, been that special, sadly. And I'm still waiting for that, and I'm hoping maybe, just a little bit, maybe Thrice might pull something, or I'd be surprised, and, who knows? I mean, who knows with what we're going to get with later on in the year, if Tool finally throws something at us again for once, or just, or at least there hasn't been one specifically that's actually truly as a whole wowed me like there has kind of been within the past couple years or so. But I guess that's because of how I've been growing as a reviewer, slightly here and there. But that's, like I said, overall, this album's definitely worth your time if you are at least a fan. Anyone who considers this generic, what's wrong with you? Don't lie to me and say that after Devil Put Dinosaurs here, you didn't want them to actually try to see if they could, not only make a better album, but also try to go back to what they did with the State of the Era without compromising what they've been doing entirely, which I almost felt like they were kind of doing with the last record, but with this one, it worked better for them, and it flows better. If it comes off predictable to a degree, but it's not an awful predictable. You're not going to not be entertained or have fun with this album, and that's what matters, is that you're going to have fun with this album. You're gonna enjoy yourself, if you've even bothered to enjoy the best the Lane Staley era has to offer, and the best that this era had to offer, and they found a way to make it work, and I'm glad they did. What are your guys' thoughts on Fog Rainier? Do you agree with most people who just kind of said it's kind of good but meh or something, or do you actually think this is somehow bordering into the territory of one of Alice in Chains' best efforts they've ever done? Leave a comment below, let me know. Rock that like button with thrust if you must if you like this video. Please follow me on Facebook, link in the description below. Probably hit the like button there too, if you also with thrust if you must. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you all in the next video. Well, I guess I'm looking out on the weather. Oh well. Take care, y'all. Ken mode next. And then maybe you might do Happy Time Murders late, or whatever's out in theaters, we'll find out. Take care.